Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm going to give you my Dungeons & Dragons review for Disney's 2023 Haunted Mansion, which was absolutely fantastic. We're going to talk about what the takeaways are for every dungeon performer and every dungeon master. So first of all, let's give it its, how many dragons did this earn? It earned a white dragon. It earned a black dragon. It fully earned the red dragon. It earned the blue dragon. And it earned the green dragon. A 5 out of 5 dragons film, right? It really is fantastic. I was extremely impressed with this film. And it has some significant takeaways for every dungeon performer and some significant takeaways for every dungeon master. Let's get to dungeon performers first. So you inhabit the identity vessel that others call the character sheet, right? Others come and they like roll a few dice, chop up some goblins, play your character, done, right? You go beyond that. You're a dungeon performer, right? And you are diving into each narrative. You are partnering with your dungeon master. You are making sure that every other dungeon performer at the table, maybe they're just players, but either every other dungeon performer, or if you're stuck with Dungeons and Dragons players, that's okay too, right? It'll happen. People become Dungeons and Dragons players before they become dungeon performers, right? But you're making them shine as well. You know that each narrative is important, right? Well, what is really special about, by the way, robust spoilers for Disney's Haunted Mansion 2023. One of the things that you know as that you have reached the point of learning as a Dungeons and Dragons as a dungeon performer is that there are turning wheels for every one of your performances, right? So you need everything to be on point, right? Are the other dungeon performers at your table performing well? Are they buying into the narrative? Are they investing? Are they accepting hooks that the dungeon master is putting forward? Are they offering hooks that the dungeon master can grab and use to pull the narrative forward, right? Is the dungeon master on full tilt, right? Like, are they running as quickly as they possibly can? And is the time, right? Are the current D&D canon hardbacks that are needed to tell the type of stories that you need to tell available, right? Does your dungeon master understand what's been put forward in the D&D canon hardbacks? Do the other dungeon performers do that, right? Are you at a position where you can truly inhabit an identity vessel, which others call a character sheet, a player character? Well, when we look at 2023 D&D, when we look at Disney's 2023 Haunted Mansion, you can see a performer hitting with all the gears possible. And I was absolutely blown away and truly inspired by what I saw in the 2023 Disney Haunted Mansion. And that was the performance of LaKeith Stanfield. He does an amazing job of this. I have watched him for 4 years through his entire run on Donald Glover's Atlanta, which was the single most, I think it is the single most innovative television series I have ever watched. It is truly astounding and really a very special achievement, right, in art, in American art. And LaKeith Stanfield is a big part of that, right? Now, the reality is LaKeith Stanfield served extremely well for 4 years in Atlanta. But in that show, he played a person who was overusing recreational intoxicants the whole time. And so it really limited what he could achieve in that role. But I think, I'm an American muscle car owner. I own a 1986 Buick Regal Type R with a 305, right? And owning an American muscle car, one of the things you get introduced in the community is sleepers. Those are cars that are a lot faster than what people think. Like, my car looks fast, right? It looks like a Batmobile that rolled off the set of a Mad Max film, right? And so I'm not going to surprise anybody, but sleepers are American muscle cars that look like junk, right? But roll. And they roll hard and they roll fast, right? LaKeith Stanfield is a sleeper, right? I think the role he played in Atlanta really hid what an amazing performer this man is. This is his best role to date, and he is the heart of this film. And he plays a grief-driven, grief-stricken human being, right? And he is so transparent, and his performance is so transformative, right? And you could tell, I really felt like he was bringing joy to the other performers in the film. He was bringing joy to the audience, and he was bringing joy to his director. You, as a dungeon performer, are in a position where you need to bring joy to your dungeon master. You need to bring joy to every other dungeon performer at that table, and you need to bring joy to the audience of your Dungeons & Dragons game. We've not talked about that, right? Who is the audience of your Dungeons & Dragons game? Well, you are. If you're listening to this channel, you play the real deal, right? Physical table, physical books, physical dice, right? You know, we're not playing a video game here, right? So if that's the case, your audience, your dungeon performers are also your audience, but your audience is also everyone you tell the story that happened at your Dungeons & Dragons table. Everyone your dungeon master tells that story to, and everyone those dungeon performers story to. And exactly as Joe Manganiello said, we have the ability to transform our lives and in turn transform our culture. And in the 2023 Haunted Mansion film, LaKeith Stanfield is doing a tremendous job of allowing art to be a transformative element, right? And in this film, LaKeith Stanfield plays a character by the name of Ben, whose wife died, and he is utterly crushed by the loss of his wife, and he is constantly seeking ghosts but can never find them, right? Until he finds Gracie's mansion, which is packed with 999 ghosts who were called to that house when Gracie, the original owner of the house from hundreds of years back, held seances for 3 years in a row, right? Actually, I'm sorry, for an entire year. Held seances for an entire year and packed the house with many, many ghosts trying to bring his wife back, right? A really transformatively powerful story, right? And it was also a logically connective sound story and a scary story, right? And that's the every dungeon master part here, right? Why is this house haunted? Well, this house haunted because Gracie, the owner, right? That's his last name. His wife died, and then he hired medium Madame Leota to do a seance in his house every day for a year until he could bring back his wife. Well, what was happening is this powerful medium was drawing spirits into the house, but not, but she couldn't release them, right? So the house is super haunted, right? And so essentially, finally, the ghost of the Hatbox Killer, I think it's the Hatbox Killer, right? Who was played by Jared Leto very well in this film, did a good job with it. And the Hatbox Killer is now trying to achieve a threshold of 1,000 ghosts, and once that 1,000 ghosts is met, he will be freed from the house and be able to go forth with an army of ghosts, right? Which is really, incredibly, will make him incredibly powerful, and actually will give him the ability to haunt freely, to haunt freely the world, with power behind him. So if you're a dungeon master, this movie is excellent to watch, to learn how to craft a sensible, logically bound story, right? There's good, sound reasons for why the things that happen in the movie happen in the movie. And then this good, sound, logical story is brought to life by the phenomenal performance of LaKeith Stanfield. If you're a dungeon performer, you'll be inspired by this film. If you are a dungeon master, you will be shown exactly to how to craft a logical, bound tale, right? That is bound by its own rules, right? And those rules, while they ground the narrative, still allow excitement to flow. This is every Dungeon Master content. This is every Dungeon Performer content. 5 dragons out of 5. Get yourself to this film. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.